Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the Gender Equity and Financial Inclusion Forum. I'm Katrina No, and I'm a director with Kiva's asset management subsidiary, Kiva Capital Management. And our team at Kiva is thrilled to be hosting this week's forum and in partnership with USAID. At Kiva, our mission is to expand financial access to help underserved communities thrive. And since our founding in 2005, over 80% of Kiva loans have gone to women. We know that improving financial access for women can boost country-level GDP and is important and critical to our borrowers' communities, their regions, and their countries. We also know that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to reaching unbanked women. And in addition to tailored solutions to meet the specific needs of women's clients, we need a diversity of stakeholders to tackle gender-related issues from all angles. For today's sessions, you're going to get an in-depth look at a few key stakeholders and how they're applying a gender lens to their work. In the first session, you'll hear from microfinance institutions and technical assistance providers, and how they're elevating stakeholder voices in order to design better products for women. In the second session, we'll focus on one investor perspective, that of corporates, and how how and why they're putting advancing gender equity at the center of their business priorities. And before launching into these dynamic conversations, I did want to go through a few housekeeping items. The sessions are being recorded, and these recordings will be shared with registrants following the conference in the coming weeks. If you're interested in subtitles and following a live transcript of today's conversations, you can activate that subtitle function at the bottom of your screen. And like yesterday, we do encourage everyone to chat in your comments and your questions to the speakers in the chat box that should be located to the right of your screen. And then finally, we're going to be hosting networking sessions in a Zoom meeting format at 10 a.m. Pacific. You should have received a link in an email that went out to you earlier today, but we'll also be dropping that link again in the chat box closer to the end of our formal programming. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce you to one of my colleagues, Stasi Baranov, who leads Kiva's technical assistance programs and will be your next session facilitator. Stasi, over to you.
Amazing. Thank you, Katrina. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where you're tuning in from. Welcome to this panel discussion about participatory product design. I'd like to start by giving a huge thanks to our panelists today who are joining us, who will each be introducing themselves to you shortly. I'd also like to thank all of our attendees that have tuned in for this session, and to our Kiva staff and partners that helped to make this event happen. My name, as Katrina mentioned, is Stasi Baranov. I am the Senior Manager for Kiva's Technical Assistance and Capacity Building Programs, and I'm delighted to be here today with our panel. A few housekeeping items to follow on Katrina's comments. I'm trying to keep us on track for time to make sure that everyone can make all of the points that we've discussed, as well as leaving time at the end for questions from the audience. This is really, I think, an engaging topic, and many of you probably have a lot of insight to bring as well. As mentioned, you can type any questions that you have into the chat, and we'll be addressing those at the end of our panel session. Each of these folks brings an incredible wealth of knowledge to the microfinance sector and real in-depth expertise to our subject today. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get us all started. So first, as mentioned, I would love to hear an introduction from everyone that's with us today, as well as an introduction to your organization. I also think for the purpose of this panel, it's really helpful to frame what we really mean when we say participatory product design. So if each of you could also share what sort of your definition and your organization's thinking is around that, as well as the role that you play in the process in terms of client voice, but also in terms of product design. So I'm going to ask you all to share in order that I see on my screen. So Kayleen, do you mind starting first, please?
Of course. Thank you, Stasi, and thank you, Kiva and USAID for the opportunity today. So my name's Kayleen Alvarez, and I'm the founder and managing director of Athena Global, and we're a service provider in the access to finance industry, mostly in emerging markets. We've been operating for about 12 years now, and we provide a commercial approach to access to finance, working everything from microfinance institutions to large regional corporate style banks. And everything that we do has a gender and an equity lens. We also look a lot at climate equity as well. And so Stassi, do you want me to go ahead and go into how we define participatory? Okay, thank you, Stassi. So for us at Athena, we're often working with clients that have a variety of mandates or preferences. We are also an SME lender in Indonesia, so I'm going to kind of keep that to the side right now. But when we work with clients, we always put the end user at the middle. And in this case, we're talking about women users of microfinance institutions. So we always put them at the center. But for us, it's about first and foremost finding a solution rather than just focusing on a product. And how we do that is we really look at the pain points that the women are having, whether that's time or cultural barriers or overcommitments, and how we can try to solve some of those problems through or with a financial product. And I think one of the things that we do with all of the institutions that we work with is try to create a unique value proposition that resonates with that financial institution so that they can defend that position and then they can create a segment for themselves in the market. And then we also encourage our clients to have an iterative approach because the client needs will change over time. And so you might have the perfect product today, but it may not work in a year. And so we always encourage revised market research and an iterative approach. So for us, that's how we try to use a participatory product design. The last thing I will say is we always put the women at the center, the end user at the center, but we also try to talk to other branch staff because sometimes you can have a perfect product, but if the sales or the distribution is off, it can mess things up. So we try to interview all the stakeholders.
Thanks, Keeling. I'll just pass it straight over to William.
Thank you, Stassi, and thank you for the organization to have this event. My name is William Aleni Kenyi. I head business development at BRAC Uganda Bank Limited. BRAC Uganda Bank Limited transformed from a non-regulated entity that has been operating in Uganda from 2006, and moved in 2016 strategically to ensure that we're able to meet the voices that the clients had sent forward to us, where they wanted to have all financial products extended to them in these areas where they excluded sustainably. And so as an entity, we look forward to a world free from all forms of exploitation and discrimination, where everyone has the opportunity to realize their potential. And we realize that we have been extending into areas where hitherto the people that we target, who are the bottom of the pyramid clients, had been excluded. And so when we provided an opportunity to serve them, they did indicate that we should be able to provide all services under one roof. And so that informed our transformation in 2019 into a regulated entity. And we are able to serve this through our outreach to the people at the bottom of the pyramid, which informs our footprint in terms of the branch network, where we have 163 locations across the country, serving slightly over 300,000, and ensuring that we are able to espouse the ethos of BRAC International, which is the group to which we do belong. But also beyond that, just to indicate that at BRAC, we value human-centered design to product development. And this is key because we deal with a relatively vulnerable group that needs to speak to us, and we need to take into consideration whatever they do. And so research is part of our DNA. And through this research, we're able to pick learnings from the field, get what the customers are saying, and together with them, we are able to co-design products and services. But also then we go back to pilot and test these products. We refine them along the way. And finally, once we have piloted and reviewed these products, we're able then to scale up. And so human-centered design has been part and parcel of our DNA, and that informs why we have an in-house research cell for BRAC International. So that is how central the clients have been to us, as an entity in all that we do, not necessarily only product development, but also in testing out services that we're able to offer to the different clients.
Wonderful, thank you. Moving along in my little squares, I have signed up next.
Great. Hi, everybody. This is Zainab Said. I am the Chief Strategy Officer for Kash Foundation. Kash Foundation is a microfinance institution from Pakistan. We are the first specialized microfinance institution from Pakistan that works primarily with women. So all of our clients have been women. In terms of our footprint right now, we work in about 325 locations and have an active client base of about 570,000 clients, all of them, as I mentioned, being women. Question in terms of what Stacy asked, what does participatory product design mean for an entity like us? And in a nutshell, what that essentially means is keeping the client at the center. So this means the entire value chain of product creation, from needs identification to prototypes to processes to documentation. Everything is done keeping the view, keeping the access, and keeping the ease of use of the client at the center. And we've been very lucky, since we've actually been very cognizant of having this as a conscious policy in product development. What we've been able to do is have robust mechanisms at all steps of the way, which we will talk more about in the rest of this session. So over to you, Stasi.
Thank you. And then last but not least, Ramiro, please.
Thank you, Stasi, and thanks for the invitation. So I'm Ramiro Rejas. I'm a senior associate at 60 Decibels, which is an end-to-end social impact measurement company. And we've worked in more than 70 countries now, even though we only have 7 years running. And what we do is impact measurement through phone-based surveys to end beneficiaries. So we are able to collect this data quickly and affordably from the end beneficiaries of social enterprises, a lot of them within the financial inclusion sector. And then we're also able to benchmark the performance to sort of compare these social enterprises to their peers in the sector. So in terms of, from our end, what participatory design means, it's pretty much putting the end beneficiary at the center of the design process. So at 60 Decibels, what we try to do is we help companies, social enterprises, listen to these end beneficiaries and try to gather their opinions on future projects or future products or features in their products that they can implement on an ongoing basis. So happy to be here, and over to you, Stasi.
So sample management.
Thanks, Ramiro, and thanks, everyone. So just to summarize, actually, it sounds like we have sort of a common consensus around centering our clients and borrowers in the process of product design. So that's really excellent in thinking about sort of the common threads that we have between all of our panelists today, and will allow us to really dig deep into that concept. I think to take a step back from that, I would really like to talk about the why for a minute. So we're obviously spending 3 days together talking about gender equity and financial inclusion. And a question for Kayleen here is, why would a financial service provider include and center women clients and borrowers in product design? Why not just design a product and go to the market and see which products clients end up picking up?
Thank you, Stasi. I think that's the way it was done historically, maybe 20 or 30 years ago. But to be honest, right now, the space is too competitive and the microfinance clients are too sophisticated to really have that be an effective strategy for product design and product launch. And so, what we do know is that you've got to design with the end user in mind. And I think that you've heard that echoed through all of the introductions so far on this panel. And what we do know fundamentally about women clients of financial institutions, just based on years and years of research, is that women are looking to build a relationship with a financial intermediary, right? They want to understand that they're working with a financial intermediary that gets them for the long term, that they're a partner to help them build a business. And they want someone that feels like there's mutual trust there, right? And if we contrast that to men, which we often don't see in the microfinance sector, so this is a bit of extrapolation from the larger financial services, We know that men tend to be more transactional. They're looking to solve today's problem today, and they may have multiple relationships with different financial intermediaries for different types of needs. Women, on the other hand, prefer to be a bit monogamous, if I can use that term. And what we do know across financial services is that it takes about 4 times longer to sell a woman on a financial product than it takes to sell a man. But we also know that on average, women have 7 products per financial intermediary, while men typically only have 3. So what that means is, although the sales process is longer, which translates to being more expensive, it's also more profitable because the women will stay loyal to a financial institution. And over the course of time, there's that mutual trust that's built and its profitability, right? And what we also know is that as the microfinance institution gets more and more sophisticated and there's a lot more differentiation among MFIs, but also among products, is that not all women are homogenous in their needs. For example, you might have a woman who's just looking to bring additional revenue into the household to send her kids to school. You might have another woman who's looking to build a small family-run business for economic sustainability. Or you might have another woman who legitimately thinks that she's going to be the next IPO unicorn in her country, right? And so it's really important to understand the relationship that women want to have with a financial intermediary and their needs and goals, because the product is ultimately a manifestation of the relationship that the woman wants. And let me go back to those 3 examples that I gave you quickly. So for example, if a woman just needs additional revenue to put her kids into school, then she might be looking for a savings linked product to her lending because she's sort of looking for revenue and security. Where if you've got a woman who's looking to build a family-owned business to give her family economic stability, she might also be interested in an insurance product or things that make her life easier, like being able to pay vendors or suppliers through a mobile app or something like that. And if you've got a woman who wants to be the next, Facebook or something like that, then she might be interested in a digital distribution network, or having access to other things that a microfinance institution can provide, like access to networks or access to other vendors. And so again, it's important that you understand the relationship that the woman wants to have with the MFI, and also how that product can help build that relationship and create the stickiness so that the woman is loyal to the microfinance institution, because customer acquisition is way too expensive to just kind of throw products out into the market and hope that that's what they want.
I love that, Kayleen. The concept of, first, the way that you can approach your relationship with a financial service provider as a woman is relationship-based. And second, really this concept that women are not a monolith. And I think in a lot of product design practice, there's like, oh, we'll serve the women clients as though it's this bucket of people that might all need the same thing at the same time. So I really love those examples and really love that you touch on that. And I think thinking a little bit about how an institution might be able to get that genuine and unique information about each individual, I want to turn to Ramiro now with 60 decibels and sort of ask Ramiro, what's the role that an organization like yours can play in really diving into the details and the specifics and the differentials between different types of borrowers in the market?
Thanks, Tessie, for the question. So as I mentioned, 60 decibels is a social impact measurement company. So mostly we look at measuring impact data. However, our clients, which are social enterprises, they're also very interested in collecting and gathering data around product design. So we help companies get feedback from end beneficiaries at any point of their product journey, we would think. So sometimes companies come to us and they, at the ideation stage, when they're thinking about a new product or service that they want to release in the future, and they just have like a very open-ended general question for their clients, which is pretty much like, what would you like us to offer to you? Is there anything in particular that you need at the moment or in the near future? So that is one way we can go to end beneficiaries and gather the data, which again helps the companies start the ideation, the initial phase of their product design. We also have some other cases in which companies, they already have a product and they want to of course, improve this product or service that they are offering their clients already. And so in that case, we also go and ask any beneficiaries if there are any features that could be improved, what kind of challenges they are experiencing with the product or service, and how satisfied they are overall with the interaction they're having with the social enterprise. So thinking about financial inclusion, I think a topic that has been quite important and top of mind in the last few years has been digital solutions. So in particularly in our case and the projects we've conducted in the last couple of years, I would say, we have included a section of questions on appetite for mobile money or digital solutions. So for example, last year with Brad, who William can tell you a little bit more later maybe, we conducted a series of studies and we asked end beneficiaries if they were, well, first interested in mobile money solutions. And it was interesting to look at the data because we saw that it changed across geographies. So for example, in West East Africa, appetite was pretty high compared to Southeast Asia, which was relatively low in that case. And when looking at the specific features that they wanted to see in certain products, we saw that most clients, around 2 in 3 clients, were saying that they really wanted to do loan repayments through their digital solutions. So that was a key finding, because then BRAC went on to their design phase and they were able to kind of adopt these products to that need. And a lower percentage of customers, around half of them, said that they would like to see some sort of savings account through their mobile apps. So overall, it was some data that was useful to BRAC across different countries in order to see what kind of products they could design and or what kind of features they could add to their current products. So just to kind of finalize on that point, I also wanted to mention that it is quite important from our end to collect data on an ongoing basis. So we don't see this as a one-time exercise, but we encourage all our clients, social enterprises to conduct studies periodically. So what we've done within the financial inclusion sector in the last few months actually has been, we have designed this financial inclusion index, and it is a tool that is giving social enterprises just a quick and effective way of collecting this sort of data periodically, and also have benchmarks to compare their performance with other peers in the sector and within their regions. So it is also helping social enterprises inform their decisions when it comes to the products that they are offering and the new products that they will offer in the future. Over to you, Stacy.
Thanks, Ramiro. As a quick note, if anyone wants to learn more about the Financial Inclusion Index, what's the best way that they can find that out?
Great question. So we have some information on our website. If you just go to 60decibels.com, you'll find some information there. If you're interested, please feel free to contact me directly. I know that they're going to share our emails. So just feel free to reach out and we can provide you with more materials and what we've been doing so far.
Perfect. Thank you. So Ramiro mentioned that they have done some work with BRAC over the years, in particular sort of year-over-year data collection and feedback on products and services. It seems like a perfect opportunity to segue over to William. William, I would love to hear more from you. Could you give us an example maybe of a product that BRAC has designed with stakeholder data and participation?
Stacy, thank you. Maybe I'll just give background, which would then give perspective to the information that I would be able to share. One, at the bank, we have 95% of our clients are women. And so these are split into 2 categories. we have 85% of our portfolio in group loans, and in group loans, it is purely 100% women. And the 15% is in individual loans, which is the other portfolio. And of these 15%, again, 10% is women and 5% is men. And so in total, we are dealing with about 95% of our clientele being women. And again, in terms of staffing, we have 1,638 of our staff being female out of the 2009 total staffing. But also within this, we have a specific category who are the key decision makers at the branch level. All our satellite managers are women. And so we are dealing with women in all that we do. And so as an entity, we have had to do specific research that informs how we are able to meet the needs of our target audience in terms of clientele. So research has been central, like Ramiro indicated. First, between 2016 and 2017, we did research to understand issues around mobile payments for the women that we serve. Later on, when we transformed around 2018, 2019, we were able to do a baseline survey to understand what is in the market in terms of the different product offering, but what is it that our clients are speaking in the new dispensation where we are moving from an unregulated into a regulated space. So we have done that kind of research before in 2016 and again in 2018, 2019. Moving on into 2019 to 2021, we thought we needed an independent entity to undertake the impact of the work, a study on the impact of the work that we do, but also give a completely different perspective to how the clients perceive us and what is it that they are communicating to us. And so we were able to work together with the 60 Decibel to undertake for us a lean data survey every year. So we have done 3 of those, but also relatedly, we have had to do our independent client satisfaction survey in-house to continuously find out the voice of the client. And all these feed into our social performance management action plan, which you might be interested in knowing that out of all the regulated entities in Uganda, we are the only one that has a social performance management committee at the board level. And so they are interested in knowing how we are engaging the clients and what is it that the clients are telling us. So basing on all this, and like Ramiro said, the feedback from our clients in terms of different channels that we can be able to engage them, they did talk about mobile banking and agent banking as possible solutions that would address some of the pain points through the researches that we were able to do. And so we had to go through the process of developing a product related to mobile banking, another related to agent banking, moved through the internal approvals and up to the board, and we were able to present this to the regulator. Once the regulator gave us a no objection to go ahead to undertake the products and engage the clients on the same, we set out to undertake a survey during a pilot period, which then informs, and we are able to pick these learnings continuously to either tweak the products or to add onto what we probably could have had in our hypothesis when we are setting out to roll out these products. And so during this pilot period, we hope we'll be able to pick learnings from this agent banking as well as mobile banking that would inform the ultimate product that we will be able to offer during the scale-up period. And so we have picked a lot of learnings from this studies that we have carried out, and these are fed directly into the development of the 2 products. In terms of feedback of tweaking other products, I'll talk about that later, but we have been able to make informed decisions basing on researches that have been done with support from 60 Decibels, with support from our own research cell, and with support from our internal staff as we continue to engage the clients before we scale up any product.
Thanks, William. There are a few things that really stuck out to me and resonate with me about what you just shared. I think obviously the statistic up front that you shared around the number of staff that you have that are women out of the total number of staff at the bank overall. And in addition, putting women in positions of decision-making. And I think that that's sort of let's see, we haven't focused as much on that in this panel. And so I'm hoping to circle back to that actually, because I think it's really interesting, in addition to what you shared about the actual research and design process afterward. I think this opens up a moment actually to turn to Zainab and ask some questions about cash that are very similar. So obviously cash works pretty explicitly with women. You also have a strong, predominantly female set of leadership. So in light of this, I think I'm curious to hear how cash also approaches this type of work differently than other institutions might, given the strong female leadership and predominantly female clientele.
Great. Thank you, Stacey. So, I mean, one of the good things that's coming out of this panel is that a lot of us are doing the same kind of work and a lot of us are using the same principles. So I'm really, really happy to hear that. Talking about Kash specifically, so, you talked about how we have women leadership. We have a gendered leadership, actually. And, we're very proud of the fact that we're pretty much the only microfinance institution in Pakistan and, I think across the region that has a 50% gender ratio across all of its staff tiers. So this means, people in the field, people at decision-making levels, people in the head office. So across tiers, we have a 50% gender ratio, and we have about 3,300 staff members that work with us. What we also map is how many people within the institution actually report to a female boss, and 51% of our employees actually report to a female boss. So it's very important to have women in each sort of facet and in each cadre when you're really looking at HR management for designing products or for delivering services that are women-centric. That said, we also believe in creating male champions of change, and so 50% of our staff at all levels is male. When you sort of speak about this specifically for Kash, how is this different for Kash? So we really believe in this term called gender intentionality. So gender is not an outcome or a byproduct of our product design, but it is something that we keep at the center, or even before we go into a segment, we have the gendered needs or the intention to address a need or an obstacle or a hurdle that is faced primarily by women. So we have this intentionality. And, that's where we really start from. If we talk specifically about an example, because these ideas are sort of, a bit abstract, I'll give you the example of a livestock product that we have right now, which has about 10,000 clients that have sort of opted into the product. The reason why we have the livestock product is because we wanted to sort of enhance our footprint in the rural areas. And what we saw when we went and did research in the rural areas was that even though there is a lot of women involved in agriculture, it is primarily the feminization of the agricultural workforce that's happened. So they don't really have control over any of the inputs or outputs. So they're working as wage laborers on those farms. So instead of going in with an agri product, which is what we had intended when we went and we did the research, we decided to see what are the easier value chains that we can start our work with, where women are predominantly involved or have more control. And the first one that came up was livestock. Then we went into a detailed process of a needs assessment. We went and we spoke to lots of women in different areas in rural Pakistan. And we spoke to them and we asked them, what are the pain points that they have? What do they need? What is the size of the funding that they require? And what is the consideration? So, with the loan, what are the other things that they require? So we did this entire research, we did the scoping. And based on that, we created a product that not only is a financial product, but also has insurance for the cattle that they purchase from the money that they borrow from us. Within that, how do they keep vaccination records? How do they want to tag the animals? So a lot of people talk about biometric tagging and a lot of people talk about air tags. And don't realize that putting in a biometric chip or putting in an air tag is actually a more technical process, and it's harder for women to do it. So we even looked at, things like how do you tag an animal, and we found out that giving a bracelet that doesn't come off with the tag number is more women-centric. The point that I'm trying to make is that from the word go, from deciding what sector to go in within the agri or within the rural economy to, little things like what is going to be the timing of the loan, how are they going to repay the loan, how they're going to repay the insurance, what makes sense for them, how are they going to tag the animal, what kind of vaccination record do they need to keep, so that their animals are up to date on vaccinations. What we also saw was that, they were using old techniques and old methods of, feeding and taking care of their animals. So we also decided that we were going to do key messages with our product, which talked about better housekeeping, better nutrition, access to water for the animals, all of these things. So it became a comprehensive kind of package, which we were then able to implement. And the way the process goes is that you do the needs identification, you do the research, you do the product prototyping, which is what I was talking about, and then you do a product pilot. So we actually ran a pilot for an entire year because this was a new sort of loan. It was a larger loan than what we were used to. And after the pilot was completed, we actually do this end of pilot report where we look at what were some of the factors that we need to still work on and what are some of the factors that work really well. Based on that, we do a rollout plan, and that's when we actually take the product to market. So, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into it. And it's a very long period in terms of the pilot. But at the end of the day, it pays off because you're able to get the product right, which is accessible, which is easy for them to use, which is able to add value to these clients. And then also is something that they're willing to take and they're very excited in taking. So this is what the approach looks like for us. One of the things that I wanted to highlight, and something that Ramiro and William were also talking about, that it doesn't stop there. It's not that you create the product, you give it to roll out, and then, you sit with your hands sort of, across your chest. You have to continuously keep going back. You need to continuously looking at what is happening in the market, what are the trends, what do the clients want? So right now, for example, in one part of Pakistan, there's a cow disease that's sort of come up. It's not an epidemic or a pandemic yet, but it's come up in some areas. So right now we're looking at how we can, through our training and through our staff, educate our clients on, how to stay up to date with vaccinations. What are the specific vaccinations that are coming in? And then added to that, we have our entire sort of cycle of, customer satisfaction surveys, exit client surveys. So all of these, what they're really doing for us is they're giving us all of this very rich information about how the clients are feeling about the product. And, what are the things that we need to change? Do we need to increase the loan amount limits? Do we need to reduce the loan amount limits? Do we need to change the way we're doing insurance? Are they happy with the insurance? Are there other things that need to be added to the animal insurance? So when we started off the product, we didn't have so we have a health insurance for our client also, but since we were doing the animal insurance, we didn't do the health insurance with it because we thought, it'll be too many additional products that we're doing and, adding to the APR and the cost for the client. But 6 months in, when we went back and we went to branches where this was launched, the client said to us, we want the health insurance too. So now we offer it with the health insurance. So it's an iterative process. You're always learning, you're always adding, and you're always optimizing for the client. So that's really in a nutshell what we do for participatory product design at Kash Foundation. We stop now.
That's amazing. I love the details of that example and love hearing about the specific process and the emphasis on the iterations. I think that that's something that is hard to do. I think it can be really costly in terms of time and staff resources and money, but it's really seems very important to your process at Kash in particular to be able to test something out, iterate on it, roll it out, and then still go back and sort of see what's happening. It's making me think a lot about what organizations might be able to expect in terms of maybe medium or longer term outcomes. So you have the 6-month sort of outcome, which is an iteration on that. But in terms of your business, in terms of client livelihoods, in terms of staff time, in terms of, investors, things like this, what have been, both for you, Zainab, as well as for William with BRAC, what have been some of the outcomes that you've seen as a result of engaging in this type of work across those different areas?
William, would you want to? Yes, William is speaking.
Yes, okay, I'll go first. Thanks, Zainab. So again, based on the studies that we have engaged our clients in together with the 60 decibels, we did ask them on a number of issues, but I will want to speak to one. One of the questions was for the clients to rate our loan, and it was specifically to rate the loan either as expensive or inexpensive. And so as far as the rating of our loan as inexpensive is concerned, in 2019, only 5% of the clients interviewed rated our loans as inexpensive. When in 2020 we had the COVID and we introduced client credit relief measures, this moved to about 15% of our clients interviewed who did indicate that our loans were inexpensive. But once we had the engagements with the board, because every time we had these reports, we had to present to the board to have an independent view of how we are being perceived by our clients, but what is it that the clients are communicating. Again, I did indicate that we carry out client satisfaction as well as dropout surveys. And the most common suggestion that came through from the clients was either reduce the interest rate or move us from the fixed interest rate calculation method to a reducing balance method. And so we are able to make these presentations, and the board did consistently receive this feedback, and it moved the board in 2021 last year to change the interest calculation method from the flat method to the reducing balance method. And as a result, when our clients were interviewed in 2021, which report has just come out, we had up to 35% of the clients indicating that our loans were inexpensive. And so we were able to use the information that we gathered from the field, the feedback from the clients, to adjust our loan pricing and move it from the flat method to reducing balance method. And that is something that we thought was a positive outcome from the studies that we have had in terms of what is it that we are proposing to the clients. And to the staff, we have had to train them on a new method of calculating interest, but also showing them the value proposition to the clients, which makes it easier for them to engage the clients and to show that we are an entity that cares about them, but also that values whatever feedback they give to us.
Great, thank you so much. So, I mean, what I'm going to speak is, echoes a lot of what William has already talked about. But I think one of the other processes that I'd like to talk about that we were able to follow at Gush in terms of, the outcomes and how it's been beneficial is our health insurance program. So Gush offers a comprehensive health insurance program. We have about 1.9 million policyholders from low-income households in this comprehensive health insurance program. And we did this program earlier in 2007. And even though we had the evidence from clients and the client's needs assessment, while we were sort of speaking and creating this product with the insurance company, there was a lot of things on our wish list that we weren't able to implement because of the way that the ecosystem in the insurance world was at that point in time. This is 2006, 2007. And then what happened was that the product was not successful. So what we did was we rolled the product back and we sat and we thought and we saw what were the wins, what were the things that we could, take from there, what was the knowledge that was created in that pilot, and how could we now change that and convert it into a successful product. And it took us about 7 years to come up with the new version of it. So in 2014, we piloted the product that I was talking about, which is 1.9 million beneficiaries right now, policyholders right now. We went back to the client, we redid it, and then we stuck to our guns on the wish list. So we went to about, multiple insurance companies till we found one that was willing to work with us and, work on the product terms that we had, which then really enabled us to make it successful. So from a product that, failed and we had to pull back because, our staff wasn't happy with it, our clients were not happy with it, Now, when you go to a Kash client, and we recently completed our competition review, where we speak to clients about, what they like about Kash and other institutions. And then we also are in the process of doing our customer satisfaction survey for this year. But if you look at the results for last year, when you go to them and you say, what are the top 3 things you like about Kash? The third thing that comes up is the health insurance, right? So really, if you do a product well, you can create a USP around it. And so a lot of people, when we ask them, why do you borrow from Kash and not from another entity? Because, the market has other players. One of the things that they say to us is, well, your staff behavior is good. But secondly, you give us an insurance product, and this insurance product is really useful for us because, it's designed to cater to our needs. Little things like there's no exclusions for pre-existing conditions. I was laughing the other day with our HR people and saying, I'd rather have the client insurance than the insurance you guys give me, because, it's so difficult for clients to understand what, pre-existing conditions are, is this covered? Is this not covered? Oh, it's covered if it happens afterwards. It's covered, if it happens before, it just gets too complicated, right? So, little things like that we were able to sort of work on, and provide. So our initial product was just for the client and her husband, because we were like, these are adults, these are the ones that are doing the bread earning, it's cheaper to do it this way. And we realized that the health outcomes of their children were more important to the clients than the health outcomes that they had and, their husbands had. So the product now is a family product. It covers everyone in the family, all unmarried daughters, all sons up to the age of 18. So, all of them are covered. So, so the question really, to answer in a nutshell, is that good product design and participatory product design, listening to the client, can actually really lead to gains on the scale side, can lead to client loyalty, can actually lead to your positioning in the market becoming much better. So yes, it's great for the client, but it's also really good for the institution. So that's something that I wanted to share.
That's such a good summary. I feel like we could end the panel there and say, here's your takeaway from all of us today. Thank you both for speaking a little bit to that. I think, again, we are thinking so much about process. I think there's some practitioners in the audience. I think some people are really benefiting from hearing how that process can work, but then also we need to understand the ultimate potential business benefit here. And so thank you for sort of concisely putting that all together for us. With about 15 minutes left, I want to make sure that we get through some of our wrap-up comments as well as some questions from the audience. So in an effort to kind of get to a summary, I want to turn to Kayleen one more time and ask her, in thinking about the microfinance actors and thinking about investors into microfinance institutions, sort of our primary audience in this panel today, what are some opportunities that folks can use for incorporating women clients into product design and development? Maybe, yeah, I'll stop there.
Thanks, Stassi. Since I'm the only thing standing between the panel and Q&A, I'll try to be brief. But thanks for that. Athena's in a unique position because we're an advisory firm, but we're also a lender. So we do deal a lot with investors. And I think a couple of things that I would just say at a high level is that from an investor perspective, they often talk about, women who are heading the microfinance institution or women fund managers or something like that. But I would also encourage investors and MIVs to also kind of get their own house in order first, right? If you're going to walk the walk, you have to talk the talk. And I think William and Ramiro and Zainab here have done a really good job of talking about, women clients need to be able to see women in the microfinance institution or in the financial intermediary. It's not just about serving their needs, but it's setting a role model and being able to see women in the process. And like William said, having women branch managers and having women regional managers, that's all important because that informs the gender equity within the organization. And in turn, that will inform the way the organization does product development and serves the needs of its clients. So I would first and foremost say that. So if you're an investor in microfinance institutions and you have an all-male management team and you don't have any women on your investment committee and your investment officers are mostly men, I would encourage you to think about how that's perceived in the larger MFI world, and if that might be inhibiting your due diligence process or the way that you look at opportunities. The other thing I think I would say, and I think, listen, William and Zainab couldn't have set me up better for this, is that, and Ramiro as well, is we're all talking about building an evidence base, right? We're not just talking about, women want manicures and things like that, because what we do know from an evidence perspective is that pink products don't work. They're patronizing, they perpetuate stereotypes, and that is not what women are looking for. And so please, understand what your clients are trying to tell you and focus on a solution. And that may not be a women-owned, women-led microfinance institution, but it's about understanding the market and the positioning in the market and what the women want. And I'll leave you quickly for those of you who are trying to do product development on your own with an example that I always use. So for me, there's three key things to consider when looking at products for women in the MFI space. So the first is include non-financial services in your product design. The second is when women tell you what they want in a focus group, listen to them. And the third is to solve problems first and foremost. Don't just push financial products. And I'll give you a 60-second example of that. I'm sure we've all been in focus groups all around the world, and I'm going to give you a hypothetical one. Let's say that your board of directors and your management team doesn't want you to take any risk, right? They're very risk averse. And so you've got a focus group together of 5 women, 3 are current clients and 2 are potential clients. And all of these women are in the food business, either running food services out of their home, or maybe a small kiosk, or maybe even a stall near a bus station. And so you're running this focus group, and these women keep talking and talking and talking about how in the last 3 years, it's so hard to understand who has availability of their inputs, their milk and their rice and all of the things that they need to produce what they're doing. They never know who has it, especially with COVID, or what the prices are. And they spend a ridiculous amount of time every day just trying to figure this out. And as a practitioner leading a focus group, you get really frustrated because you're trying to focus on the financial product. But I would encourage you to take a step back. Those women are telling you what they want, right? And this is where non-financial services come into play. As a practitioner, we need to take a step back and say, listen, if information is what these women need and want, then what if we create a WhatsApp group or use some sort of digital platform that is more appropriate for your segment? And we create a WhatsApp group, and we allow other users in the group and other clients of our MFI to post what products and services they have available today and the prices and where they can get them. Because then you're solving a pain point for those women in the food and beverage industry by getting them the information that they need so they can focus on running their business. Because at the end of the day, if they can run their business, they're more likely to repay an MFI. So again, this is just an example, if you're running focus groups, on how to make sure you listen to your clients, solve problems first and foremost, and don't just focus on the financial product.
Thanks, Kayleen. I'm a little torn at this exact moment because we have some wrap-up comments from each panelist in addition to what Kayleen has mentioned. We also have a couple of questions from the audience. I think I'm actually going to flip over to a question from the audience before we all sort of say our final remarks, because I want to make sure that we sort of get to a couple of these, if that's okay with everyone. There was a question that was being asked while Kayleen was answering the first question. However, I do believe that it's for really the practitioners, or I'll say the microfinance representatives here. Beyond contributing to market research as clients, how do clients and borrowers actually participate in product design? There's a follow-up question, which is, do they have any decision-making power? I'm curious, maybe if we start there, like, is there sort of explicit decision-making power? Do you have clients on boards internally or something like this? And I'm curious between Zainab and William, if either of you have thoughts there.
Right, so I'll start answering, and then William, maybe you could also sort of add if there's something. So yes, it's not just, as passive recipients of a research questionnaire or a focus group discussion that, the involvement is limited there. We piloted and ran a concept of a Women Entrepreneurs Council, for example, where we had these women meet every quarter and talk about the issues of their area, speak to women within their areas and talk about what were the challenges that were coming in and how could we sort of help address those challenges. And Kayleen is very right. A lot of them was not about product design, and a lot of that was not about financial products. It was about the other issues that they're facing. So what Kash did as a result of that is that access to microfinance and access to finance is one part of our solution. There's four different spheres of solutions that we provide. So one is, financial access. Then we have social safety nets, the insurance that I was talking about. Then we have capacity building interventions where we actually help build capabilities of our clients to better utilize the loans, to know about markets, to know about wholesale markets, to organize within themselves into groups so that they can go and access better rates. And then what we also saw was that women don't have the space in society to really practice their voice. So what we started doing as a fourth sort of, set of activities was doing social mobilization and media advocacy through mainstream channels, through, societal channels. So we do social theater programs that are at the community level, which have the family of the client come in and speak to them. And we speak to them through iterative dialogue, through social theater about some of the issues. What we also do is we've actually produced 4 television series, and it's really funny as a microfinance institution, that's the kind of work that we're doing, because what we saw was that the role modeling around women's economic role was very, very negative. And what was the best way of reaching people and society at large was television. And so we do soap operas also, along with insurance and along with financial education and, livestock loans. So the idea is that, you have women and you keep listening to them, and it's not just in product design, like Kayleen mentioned, like Ramiro mentioned, and William also mentioned, it's iterative. You keep going back to them and you're like, okay, what's the next challenge? Because you have to understand that as life changes for us, it also changes for the clients. And the clients are constantly going through life cycle changes. And a product that was perfect for them when they were 24 years old and were not married, or, just had one child, may not be the best fit for when they're 28 or when they're 32, because a lot of these women stick with the programs also. So I hope I've been able to cover some of the aspects of the question that was raised. I know we're running short on time, so I'm going to be quiet now.
Thanks. That was very helpful insight. Thank you. William, anything to add on from Brock's perspective on the same question?
Yes. On whether they are passive or whether they actually have authority through the feedback they give us, certainly yes, because once they give us feedback, it is only prudent that we have to take the feedback to inform.
Oh no, I think we lost him. Shoot. We are short on time, so I'll send him a message quickly. Maybe we'll skip ahead to some closing remarks and then circle back to William and ask him to include these thoughts in his closing remarks. Oh, it's too bad. Okay, yes, with our 5 minutes remaining. So want to make sure that we leave final thoughts from our remaining panelists. Oh, we lost him completely. Okay, so would love to hear, I guess, from Ramiro and from Zainab at this point, sort of final thoughts on 1 to 3 things to keep in mind that are super important if you are trying to approach for perhaps the first time participatory product design, or if you're considering investing for the first time in an institution that really centers that. What are top 1 to 3 things to keep in mind in this space?
Yeah, I can go first. So I would say the first thing to keep in mind is to make sure that the voices that you're listening to are a true representative sample of the customer base, because that's the only way you get a representative opinion. And therefore that data will be actually insightful and useful for product design. Second, on product design, I would keep it as simple as possible. Just focus on the main key features that you are hearing from your customers and beneficiaries, because sometimes you cannot really cover every single feature that you might collate from feedback. And finally, just want to remind the audience that there are concrete benefits to including this into your product design process. As William was mentioning with Bragg, it was very clear how client satisfaction over time has increased, and the challenges that clients have experienced have also decreased. And so there are very concrete benefits to the operation of the business beyond just serving your clients.
I believe we have William back. Woohoo. William, I'm sorry that we lost you, but welcome back. We would love to hear your final thoughts as we are wrapping up on time on what are 1 to 3 things that you would advise microfinance institutions or investors to keep in mind. You can also continue and finish your previous thoughts if you'd like and wrap it into this.
Yes, so holding staff accountable for customer feedback makes the customer at the center of the decisions that are made, whether it's through feedback, because ultimately someone has to account, and this should be escalated up to the highest decision-making level, so that jointly we're able to co-create the products of the clients. But also in terms of wrapping up, we have believed that yes, we may be able to develop financial and non-financial products, but at the core of this, the client certainly doesn't just want services free of charge, but they want to understand the issues around the charges and also ensuring that the financial service is sustainable for them and for the institution. So they are not necessarily asking for free services. They would want to pay what they think is commensurate to the services that are being offered. And as we do this, we should be able to ensure that we remain as simple as possible. We are reliable to these clients that we continue to serve, but also we are able to provide convenience through the different customer value propositions that we will be presenting to these clients.
So I'll quickly put in my last words also, so you can sort of sum up since we are running out of time. So, I mean, one thing that's very important, and I think Ramiro also talked about, is that you need to do a deep dive into the community and you need to get multiple perspectives. So, you know, sometimes what happens is that the gatekeepers to communities are biased also. So you need to get everybody on board and don't just rely on, you know, certain segments of the population, unless of course that's the only target population that you have. So you need to get everybody's perspective. The other thing is that learn from others. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. It's very expensive to do that. So, you know, forums like this, other forums that exist, try and learn what other people are doing to address the same issue, so that you don't, so that your time to market is lesser. And then the last and final thing that I think is very important is don't be afraid of failure. So, you know, the fact that you are piloting something is protecting you from a larger risk. Because whenever you fail, you actually need to reorient and look at it as a means of creating knowledge of what not to do. So, you know, be innovative, you know, don't be afraid that, you know, it won't be a success, because with every failure, you are creating knowledge and you're going to do it better the next time. So I'm just gonna stop now.
Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry to have you rush through those last thoughts. As we previously mentioned, we have shared or will share the contact information for each of these panelists and with the attendee Zoom. So hopefully if there's further thoughts or questions and discussions to be had, we can go ahead and start there. Per Zainab's point, don't reinvent the wheel. Thank you again to all of our panelists here today. I really appreciate your time and attention and dedication to sharing your wealth of knowledge. And thanks to everyone who tuned in for this session. So to all the audience, we hope that you can all stay here and join our next session, which is focused on how and why corporates are advancing gender equity as a key business priority. And thanks again to all of our panelists. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.